Hello and welcome to the Everyday Board Game Podcast with your hosts, Daniel.
And Daniel. Oh, thank God this worked.
I was about to say, let's just speed run this. This will be the shortest episode that we've ever done. And we risked that. We're giving us like 5 minutes here. No,
We've been having nothing but issues with OBS for the last 3 weeks, but today, significantly more. It's kicked us off once. It keeps messing with our running our ads over here. Yep. Didn't want to record the file.
Yep. So normally these episodes are pretty short anyway, but our next ad goes in, roughly an hour from now.
Yeah.
And we're gonna try and finish the episode before then
because
let's just not risk it.
It's been nothing but shenanigans today. So
actually, this whole week, right? The troubleshooting has. You were telling me about how busy you've been all day.
Well, the last 2 days because I had stuff to do yesterday too, and then today, man, I was out of the house most of the day, and I'm not normally out of the house most of the day.
Yep.
Having to deal with freaking rush hour traffic for the first time, I want to say, in about 6 months or so.
Yeah.
I think Christmas traffic, well, more like 10 hours now, or 10 months. But yeah, it was a bit rough. I had to do a lot today. I had to help a buddy out because he had to get his eye dilated, so I had to drive him to doctor's visits and stuff like that, work for his eye doctor. And just sit in the waiting room for a while, so that was a bit boring. And then I was scrambling. I had to go to Sam's Club too. I was scrambling because my phone was like 10% because I was looking at it and using it while I was waiting for him to get out. And I'm like, oh God, I gotta scan all these items before we go, before I can get my receipt and get out of here.
Yeah, I wonder if they have in case that happens, I wonder if they have some kind of charging station somewhere for people.
I would hope so because I would need my receipt.
Yeah, exactly.
And the thing is I can't access the email that my account is because it's an old email.
Yeah.
And so I can't access that email anymore, even though it's still tied to that. And I tried to change it, but because I can't access the email, I can't change the email. So I'd have to start a whole new account.
Yep.
And I'm like, no, I've been in this account forever. So
right.
I'll deal with it and see what happens. Was able to get what I needed and get out of there. So it's been a busy day. And then to top it all off, we're like, oh, let's record today because you had issues yesterday.
Right. I was a little under the weather. Normally we film on Mondays, but I was a little under the weather. The only thing I did outside of work was I did go get a massage because I'll talk more about it later, but hotel beds, man, they wreck me. And I was hurting pretty bad, so I needed this massage. Just so one of our admins, or moderators, Creative Chaos, so a licensed massage therapist, and absolutely beat me up yesterday.
And
so
you probably deserved it too.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
And then gave you a massage.
And then gave you a massage too. Yeah, sure.
But no, I get it. You know what's funny is because it's the hotels that you go to. Because the ones I've been staying with my wife when I go travel with her, because she's part of the Hilton program.
Yeah.
They have some really nice beds. We were staying at a Home 2 Suites not too long ago, and
those are nice. I like
that
those.
That was a very comfortable bed. I slept like a baby when we were staying there in Denver. Yeah, no, it was good stuff.
You know which one I've been really impressed with lately is Drury Inn. Have you ever stayed at one of those?
Yeah, when I went visit her in Cleveland, they were staying in the Drury Inn.
Yeah, they have pre-made meals for people. They have like events and stuff. The one that we went to up in Albuquerque, it was really impressive.
Yeah, no, they're nice. My only issue with the Drury Inn is I don't like their pillows. Their pillows were not comfortable. They have the small little rectangular pillows rather than the normal size ones.
Yeah.
And so
human-sized pillows.
Yeah, it was a bit annoying, but other than that, and the same thing for the Home 2 Suites too. They have those weird pillows, and so that drives me insane. I want a nice pillow. You gave me a nice bed. Give me a nice pillow.
Right, exactly.
But yeah, no, other than that, I've had no issue with the hotels. Like the hotels we stayed in together. On the other hand.
Fine, we'll start paying more money now. Anytime we need to go on a trip. There is a nice place in Tucson that me and our mutual friend Jim have been staying at on our way back from our trips.
Yeah.
I'll talk more about it later, but a casino resort.
Okay, yeah, no, because
really fun.
I remember the one time when we went to Tucson together, we got invaded by freaking stink bugs in our hotel room. That was
the last time. That was the last time. I've never done that again.
Yeah, that was a bit rough.
Yeah, it was. That was definitely the worst.
And then the one we stayed at in Dallas, we weren't sharing the hotel room, but it was the same hotel you guys were in for the cheer competition before we went to the G.A.M.E.R Expo.
Yes.
That one was rough, too. Those beds were stiff. Those pillows suck. The meals sucked.
Staff was really nice.
The staff was great. Yeah. Everything else about that place was not.
It was questionable at best.
Well, and it also didn't help that we were right next to the interstate, and my window faced the interstate, so that's all I heard.
Yeah.
That and Damn It Dom. So I had the motorcycles over there and the motorcycles over there.
Oh, that rebellious teenager, I tell you.
I'm telling you, man. But with that being said, we have an interesting episode for everybody today. It is a board game brainstorm. We are doing Fury of Dracula. And coming up with Fury of Dracula, one, it makes sense because we wanted to do something for spooky season. Our original plan was Broom Service.
Spookier game by far.
Oh, by far. Yeah. But why can't we do Broom Service?
So, we have this arbitrary rule, and it is arbitrary. Let's be real.
It is.
We try to go for pretty much modern classics and
games that are 10 or older.
10 or older, yeah. So we limit it to at least 10 years or older. Now, we found out Broom Service was made in 2015. So then you spur the moment, like yesterday, you're like, wait, or no, 2 days ago, you're like, wait, I just realized 2015, we can't do it. Let's change it to something else. Fury of Dracula. Which we have played exactly once. At least I have.
Yeah.
And that was quite some time ago.
Yeah, it was a year ago.
It was enough where I forgot most of it. But I was like, okay, sure, whatever. We'll do Fury of Dracula. And then we started looking into it. The edition you have...
Which is the third edition.
The third edition, 2015.
Mm-hmm.
But it was made before that, kind of, technically. So, you know what? We're done.
The original rule sets based on this game. Now, mind you, Broom Service... is a implementation of which is Brew.
Yep.
But from what I'm understanding, there is some complex changes to the two games that they made them different. Fury of Dracula, other than more streamlined rules between the editions, it's the same game that you would play from the original to now, just with better rule sets.
Sure.
The first rule set came out in 1987, so I did not realize Fury of Dracula was as old as it was. I thought it was like mid-90s for like the first late 80s for the first Fury of Dracula, so that is actually kind of impressive that this game lasted this long.
Exactly. And it's hidden movement. I remember one of the first hidden movement games was Scotland Yard, which was made I think in 84. So it was only just predecessor by a few years. So
and it's funny because everybody is all saying like Scotland Yard was like the first one and stuff like that, and I get that aspect of it, but it's like I didn't. I always thought like everybody's like, oh, Fury Dracula took for Scotland Yard. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I was thinking more along the lines like late in the 90s and stuff like that. And then I come to find out it was like 3-year difference. I'm like,
wait a minute, hold on. Yeah, exactly. But before we get into today's episode, as we'll be giving recommendations based on our gamer criteria, as we normally do. But before we do that, let's talk about outside of gaming. What have you been doing?
So, like I talked about my trip already a couple times before we did outside of gaming, so I didn't want to belabor that fact again, that I went to Denver for like the third straight week or something.
Somebody's bragging.
But more along the lines of this one, I wanted to do something that I haven't really done in a while. I think I talked about it a little bit last year, but I'm a big horror fan, as you can see, like our background over here and stuff like that. I'm also a big sports fan. I have been watching a lot of like college football, hockey season just started, stuff like that. But I've talked about a lot of sports lately. He
always talks about the Cubs, right? Yeah. Which explains why you're such a horror fan.
Yeah, because they put on horror shows. He's not wrong there. After this year, let me tell you.
Topical joke. Yes.
But in all honesty, I love horror movies, as you can tell by the shirt. If you've noticed, the entirety of the cycle for October, I've worn nothing but horror shirts. So I started with a Pennywise the Clown, the newer version of it. I think there was a Jason Voorhees in there. There was a shirt that said, I love horror movies, and I had a big group of them. And now I'm ending with the Tim Curry Pennywise the Clown.
Yep.
So I love horror movies, and that's what I've been doing since pretty much the beginning of September. I've been watching horror movies. I started with Alien this year, because we were going to go see Alien Romulus. So me and the wife watched everything up to where Alien Romulus is. Enjoyed every minute of that. And then I'm like, oh, well, it's September, so it's spooky season. So we started watching a bunch of stuff. So I've been watching the Nightmare on Elm Street, the Freddy Krueger ones. I've also watched one of my favorites, the Halloween movies. I've been loving those movies. And then the newer ones are pretty good, too. The Michael Myers. I'm a big fan of the slasher genre. That's what I grew up with. That was going on while I was growing up. I even watched the original Child's Play, and God, I forgot how good that movie actually is, the first one. But because I had generational trauma with that one. Because growing up, when I was younger, my parents bought me a My Buddy doll. And then that movie came out, and it's funny, a lot of people are talking about it nowadays on TikTok and stuff like that. My Buddy dolls, shells were through the roof, and then Child's Play came out, and they went bankrupt. Because the Chucky character, their doll, is kind of based off My Buddy dolls, and anybody who's had older brothers would know that, or older siblings in general, would know, they would terrify their little younger sibling by saying... The My Buddy doll is going to come alive like Chucky and stab me and stuff like that. So I was terrified. Mine ended up at the bottom of my hamper, so never to be seen again. Right. But yeah, so I've been watching those. One of the ones I haven't tried yet, and it's been a big one. It's been going like on the TikToks, and they've been making memes about it and funny stuff about it. And I want to check this one out. The third movie just recently came out for it. And it's kind of Christmas style, and this is Terrifier.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the first two films are on Prime Video, so I'm going to watch that one coming up probably tomorrow and Thursday. We've watched, me and my wife have a deal that if she watches a horror movie with me, we'd watch a funny, spooky movie with her. So, because
we're Scared Stupid, right?
No, I haven't showed her that one because it's kind of hard to find that one on streaming. I have to find it like on YouTube or something like that, and I hate dealing with that because sometimes it only cuts it in half, and you can only find parts of it. Do like that movie, but we watched because I made her watch some horror movies. We watched Hocus Pocus, of course. That's a given for Halloween season.
Of course.
Also watched one of my favorite comedy horror movies, Young Frankenstein.
Yeah.
And another one.
It's Frankenstein.
That's true. Igor. It's Igor. But they told me it was Igor. But they were wrong, weren't they? I love that movie. But my personal favorite of the horror-themed ones is Dracula Dead and Loving It. That one is by far my favorite of... I love Young Frankenstein, but Dracula Dead and Loving It is so hilarious. You got Leslie Nielsen as Dracula. Yep. I can't remember the guy's name, but he was in the TV show Numbers. He was in...
Who played Renfield, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
My favorite character in a comedy movie ever. His slapstick comedy in the ship while it's rocking back and forth and he's trying to keep the coffin safe was by far the funniest scene. And I still crack up to this day. I'm cracking up thinking about it right now. So yeah, it's been watching horror movies, comedy horror movies. I just recently rewatched Killer Clowns from Outer Space, which is a classic. It is the stupidest, funniest movie I've ever seen. I love these really bad B-movie horror films. Hence why I think I'm going to like Terrifier, because it's along those lines. Not as campy as Killer Clowns from Outer Space. But yeah, I love spooky season. I love horror movies. And I'm getting ready to be happy to go into the next set, which is like family movies, Thanksgiving movies, going into Christmas movies, because my wife likes starting Christmas stuff in November, and I get it because she travels a lot, so she only gets so many times with a decorated Christmas tree and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Fine by me. We are going to decorate behind us for the November cycles and stuff like that, so I already have a plan for that. I'm going to tell you that off screen what I'm going to do back there. I think you'll like that idea.
All right.
But yeah, it's been horror movies, and I've been enjoying every minute of it.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, what's your thoughts on Addams Family?
I love Addams Family.
Yeah, because I think
that's another one.
That same guy is, and again, I don't remember the actor's name, but who was Renfield. He was in.
He's in Addams Family. Yeah.
And the camp counselor, and I think I like his role better in that. But they're both so good.
He was in the second one, Addams Family Values, because he was the camp counselor. Yeah, that's right. Well, I love him in general as an actor. He's a good, serious actor. If you've ever seen him in something like Numbers, or he does like the Mission Impossible movies as well.
Oh, okay.
But his comedy is hilarious. If you ever watch Big Bang Theory, he actually guest stars in an episode there.
Oh, I didn't realize
where he plays a recluse that hides in the mountains. That's where Sheldon has his bachelor party per se, because he's going up there to talk with him and communicate math and stuff like that. And he is hilarious. He plays crazy really good.
He really does. He's oh man, I love like his artistic vision with the play and like, you don't want to be part of my vision.
Exactly.
It's such a good movie. I love that.
He's such a good guy. I like Addams Family. In fact, I think it's one of the movies my wife has picked. So if she watches a horror movie with me, we're gonna watch Addams Family.
That's. I mean, it seems like you're coming out way on top on this deal. Like, I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Like,
I just love movies in general.
I know she's justifying, like you're trying to make it like seems like, well, I'll tolerate a comedy horror movie, and you're secretly like, well,
she knows I like all these movies, but she's like, I can't do like blood and guts all that much. Well, sure. Speaking of which, I just saw it behind me. I recently just like last weekend I watched Jaws. For the first time in several years. I forgot how suspenseful that movie is.
That movie makes you feel uncomfortable the whole time.
Yes.
That is one of my favorite suspense movies. It's just because they do such a good job of, like, you never feel comfortable. Like, yeah, and that's the point.
And I think a big part of it, too, is the way they use sound or the music in that, because they do, like, this, like, why is the music like this? They're just on the beach. Why am I getting just so tense right now?
Yep. Yeah, I think they do a fantastic job in that, personally. Yeah. It's one of my favorite suspense movies, easily. Cool. So, yeah, I've been, I guess, doing stuff outside of gaming.
Not much.
Not much, right? So, just like the list that we'll be going into later, this was also hard for me to come up with. You pretty much came up with it. And I will be talking about it because the last time we spoke about what we were doing outside of gaming, we talked about the Tucson Comic-Con.
Yeah.
Well, totally different thing has been happening. I went to a different con and ran our escape rooms there.
Yeah.
And it's so different even. We even stayed a night in Tucson on the way back. So
well, that and we're fans of G.A.M.E.R,
yes.
the G.A.M.E.R convention. They graciously invited us one year to do the podcast live. Yep. Mm-hmm. You go every year for your escape room. They have you guys come out there and set you up in a room. They're fantastic people. And in all honesty, you guys invited me the last 2 years, but I can't give up weekends right now.
Yeah, which makes sense. But I can't tell you enough like how much I just really appreciate Yuma, Arizona now. I had never been there before, maybe in passing to San Diego. Yeah. But never been there before for any actual reason, other than, I guess we'll go check it out. And then when they scouted us a few years ago from Tucson Comic-Con and invited us to do the escape room, we were expecting it to just be a bus and all that stuff. They treat us so well there. Out of all of the conventions that me and my escape room do, God, I just love them. They're awesome.
They're great people.
I cannot stress this enough. If you have an opportunity to go support them in Arizona, in Yuma, that is a great community. They do really well. All the people there are pleasant. All the people we got to talk with, wonderful
some really good
people.
Restaurants there, from what I remember. So too.
Yeah.
And I will say this: it's a
Lutz Casino. Yeah, that's the one we go to every year. Lutz Casino.
It's a smaller community and it's a smaller convention from what I remember 2 years ago. But they are some of the best supported people out there. They take care of the people that come out there, the businesses. Mm-hmm. One of the best conventions I've been to for such a small one too.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, it's definitely a small convention. There's not as much to see, but I mean, that's one of the reasons they bring us out so we can run those escape rooms for it. And Yuma does have some escape rooms there as well. Mm-hmm. So Jim and I, we both did our 4th escape room from Yuma Escape Rooms, which was the last of the ones that they had available. We just did the Fool's Gold escape room. Last year we did one other escape room. We did the horror themed one. Mm-hmm. And then the year prior to that, you and I and Jim did the two.
We did the Da Vinci and we did the Prohibition.
Yes. Yeah. So out of all of those, I think this is my least favorite. Just because and this is just going to be a slight criticism. Some of their puzzles in there just didn't seem as well thought out.
Inducive or conducive?
Conducive, yeah. Like, there was some, and I'm not going to give too much spoilers, but like there was one part where you got into another room, and they explicitly told you at the beginning, like, hey, just so you know, this other room, there's nothing else hidden in here other than this one thing that you can't move from the table. Okay. It's like, that's something that they could have put in a box, right? And just like had a lid that opens up or something like that. Yeah. And I get the contraption part of it, but like, and it was a cool contraption, like, don't get me wrong. That was probably my favorite part of that, but it's just opening a whole room and them having to specify that beforehand just seemed odd. And And then again, I won't give too much information other than that escape room, but that was probably my least favorite of it.
Mm-hmm.
The horror themed one was probably my favorite one, except there was one part that I'll tell you off screen that was really unpleasant. And it was purposely unpleasant, but I can't help. It's like I would never personally do what they did.
Understandable.
In that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, I'll tell you that later. But we decided, though, we have a goal. We have decided that if there is not a new one, we're going to replay one of the old ones next year.
Okay.
Because we want to make it a tradition of doing one every year. But we have a little surprise for redoing it, and I'll tell you that again off camera, and it's ridiculous. So if we do it, I will be talking about it next year. For sure. It's that ridiculous. But not only on top of YumaCon, I've been traveling a lot. Yeah. We had 2 weeks off for our school. We have a year-round school system.
So you get 2 weeks in fall and 2 weeks in spring.
Yep. So spring break and fall break are both 2 weeks each. And then Thanksgiving break is a week, so that's cool. But summer and winter breaks are a lot shorter.
Because you get, 6 weeks in summer, and is it 2.5 weeks in winter?
Yeah, something like that. It's really short. Like, we're back on, the second of the January, year, right? Yeah. It's really fast. And so, when I took these 2 weeks off, I went on 3 different trips, separate trips. One of which we talked about briefly because I had to be up in Albuquerque, which is why we didn't film that week.
Yeah, that's why I just did the live show where I talked about Essen and stuff like that. Interesting.
Yep,
yeah,
exactly. So. Yeah, and when I was up there, I went to probably a grand total of about 12 thrift stores.
Of course you did.
Of course. Well, my wife was working, and I was like, I have 2 full days to just do whatever, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so I went to all 3 Savers, because now there's a third one, which is really cool. With all 3 Savers, 4 different Goodwills, a Salvation Army, a Thrift Town, few other different, a Safe Haven, whatever. And then I went to about half dozen antique stores, which I found an amazing deck of cards. Oh my goodness.
Oh yeah, you were telling us about this last week.
I'm still so stoked about that deck of cards. It's so beautiful. It's from 1907. How often do you get to hold something that's literally 117 years old?
You want to know something funny about 1907? First time the Cubs ever won a World Series.
And until recently, last.
No, right? 1908 was their last. So they won back-to-back in 07, 08. Oh, okay. And then waited 108 years to win their third.
Because it was 2016 or 2012?
2016.
Yeah. See? I know more sports than you realize. Ha-ha. But no, so that was great. And then on the way back, I'm going to give a shout out to where we stayed on the way back from Tucson. Because I was really impressed by it. We stayed at Desert Diamond Casino.
This is when he's coming back from Yuma.
Yuma, yes. So we stayed in Tucson on the way back. And so that way I didn't have to show up at 4 in the morning and then work the next day.
Yeah.
Which would have been unpleasant. So, yeah, they beat out Miami in 2015. That's well done, Mario Fanatics. And, I mean, that's more sports than I know, I'll admit. No, but, so, on our way back, we stayed at Desert Diamond Casino. Uh-huh. And they have a food court at the back of the casino, which this is where we've been staying the past 2 years. And we specifically stayed there again this year, just because my buddy Jim wanted to buy the cheese pizza there. Because they sell a whole cheese pizza. It's $16 or something. It's not bad. Yeah. But it's a 16-inch pizza.
Jesus.
It's massive. And it's really tasty. Oh my gosh, is it tasty. Super fluffy crust. Really... really, just tasty thing.
Yeah.
But you have to go to the back of the casino into, the food court area.
I got it, Mario.
The food is pretty inexpensive, which is awesome. So, let's hear. It wasn't a real event. It happened. Oh. Well done. Okay, Back to the Future reference. Love it. But yeah, so it's been traveling. And then the last place I traveled to, which I was really excited about, was El Paso. Which isn't that exciting.
It's 45 minutes from us.
45 minutes from now. But I went to tour the Amazon distribution facility in El Paso.
Oh, that's right. I forgot you did that.
It was so cool. Oh, my goodness.
Such a nerd.
It's so nerdy. But my God, was it such a great experience. I cannot recommend that enough. That was one of the neatest tours I've been. I've been to, countless museums. I've been to the Denver Mint. I've been to, which is also super nerdy, by the way. I admit that. That was a great tour. It was really good.
We actually drove by the Mint.
You should actually see the tour. It's really fun.
Screw that. I went downtown and went to a baseball game, so...
Well, I mean, if you run out of baseball, if it's out of season or something and you go up there and you're forced to
when it's out of season, I can go watch hockey or I can go watch football.
Fine. Don't look at little metal discs being printed at millions per minute. Whatever. You're missing out. Let me tell you that. No, I love the Denver Mint. It was super fun. But the Amazon facility, they offer free tours. Anybody who's interested, it makes sense for me because I'm an educator and I'm a technology educator nonetheless. So I was there literally to get videos and pictures of robots to show the students cool things, like how the manufacturing process works, how they utilize that engineering for really like crazy amounts of efficiency. But I will point out, I wasn't sure if I was going to see board games there because it's millions of items, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, man, that'd be kind of cool, but I'm not going to hold my breath. And then they have these giant bins that hold up like 2,000 pounds, and these robots lift them up and move them around. They're massive shelves, right? And it's moving around. As the tour guide was talking, I see Boop go by. I'm like, oh, I know that one! And I almost interrupted him. Like, dude, stop talking. To take a picture of a game that I just own. That's not really, like, why would that be exciting outside? I was like, oh, I saw a Boop in the wild. Oh, no!
Yeah.
You know,
I see Boop in the wild all the time.
Yeah. I was like, we go to Barnes, and it's there, right? You know, it's not that exciting. A local friendly game store. It's there too. But the thing is, like, seeing it at the Amazon Fulfillment Center was something really funny.
Yeah, I think if you ever get a chance, maybe try to do like a field trip. I highly recommend this place. It's in downtown El Paso. It's called the Nune Science Museum or something like that. It's right across the street.
Kids Museum.
Yeah, it's right across the street from the baseball stadium.
Yeah, okay.
And it's fantastic. We ended up having to take our friends' kids. And it's funny, I made the joke, I'm like, yeah, I told my in-laws, like, yeah, we're kidnapping our friends' kids. This way Calissa can go play in the Science Museum. Calissa being my wife, because she loves that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And the big thing is, like, our friend was running a convention at the Las Cruces Comic-Con, and they're like, we got to take care of the kids and stuff like that. I'm like, well, we'll just take them. Calissa wants to go to this thing anyway.
Why not, right?
Let's take them. It has a 4-story jungle gym for the kids to tire themselves out. Not to mention the really cool contraptions that you would get a kick out of.
Oh, yeah. I would love every minute of those.
Yeah. So I highly recommend you if you ever want to do something like that, that would be cool.
Cool. I will. All right. So let's get into today's episode.
All right.
And, of course, welcome Mario Fanatics for joining us.
Again, what we're doing, it's a brainstorm of the game Fury of Dracula. We're going to give 5 recommendations based off our gamer criteria. We'll explain what those are going as we go through the topic. But Fury of Dracula is a hidden movement game, one versus many, where one person is playing Dracula while everybody else is playing the hunters trying to find Dracula. Dracula wins if he reaches, I forget what it's called, it's like the tension level up to a certain point.
Yep.
Which is like 20 rounds or something like that. I can't remember exactly. And then the hunters are trying to defeat Dracula, find him, put him on the board, and take his health points down. It is a fun game, a little bit long, has one issue that I have with this game. That you have to play with all the hunters.
Yep.
So if you're playing a 3-player game, 2 hunters, or one person's playing Dracula, and one person is playing 2 hunters, or 2 people are playing 2 hunters. If you're playing a 4-player game, then someone's controlling 2 hunters while everybody else has 1 character.
Yep.
That's my only frustration with this game. Other than that, I think it was fun. It was very thematic. And I really love the combat in this one, too. The rock, paper, scissors aspect. We didn't really get to do that a lot because we were playing against Dammit Dom and he kicked our butts. But it's a rock, paper, scissors. So it's like, if I play this card and you play that card, my card negates your card because it beats scissors.
Yeah.
I like that aspect. I wish more games did something like that.
Yeah. I mean, we could buy one right now.
Flip the coin.
All right. So let's get into today's episode. Again, our gamer criteria, we're going to talk about all of the different recommendations that we have. So let's start with game immersion.
Do you think, before we get going, do you think we're going to have any crossover?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So, game immersion, I think maybe 1.
Possibly.
Maybe 2.
Maybe.
But I think 1 maybe. But when we're talking about game immersion, that is the G.A.M.E.R gamer, it is a game that is fun to lose, that has some good player interaction, whether it's table talk or role-playing, in those memorable moments. And so for me on this one, also didn't mention this at the beginning of the podcast, but I also put a little criteria on me since it's spooky season. I wanted to keep to the horror theme. And so every single one of my games has some sort of horror aspect to it.
All but one of mine is.
And so the game I picked for Game Immersion is one of the newest games that are on my shelf over here, and that is Halloween.
Yeah, figured this was coming on.
One, it's Emerson Matsuchi, and I could have put this at 2 spots. Ease of Play or Game Immersion. I just feel this is a much more immersive game, especially if you play the Halloween soundtrack in the background. You really do get into the roles, especially if you're playing the Michael Myers character. You really do feel like, how did you get up on me so quickly? I was like, you were over there, and now I'm being stabbed. What the heck? You get into that aspect. Oh. I saw you over there, and now you... what's going on? I'm scared.
I'm scared.
It's real simple, too. It's basically Michael Myers wants to kill a certain amount of victims, is what it's called in the game. And the victims want to search for something and survive and rescue, either get a set of keys and rescue both kids and get the heck out of Dodge. There is limited player elimination, so if your character gets killed, there is a pool of characters that you can draw in for later. Once those characters get killed off, then you're eliminated. That second character you get eliminated, because Michael Myers only has a set amount of characters he has to kill, or he has to survive up to, like, in a 4-player game, I think it's 20 rounds.
Yeah.
But other than that, you have the real easy aspect of this game. It's very your job is communicating with your partners and searching the houses to get the items that you need.
Yep.
And simple. Survive.
Yep.
And Michael Myers is all about setting up the terrifying, just like in Fury of Dracula, or kill the victims and win. Either you survive a certain amount of rounds, like in Fury of Dracula, or you kill your victims and automatically win. It's very easy to teach. It's very easy to learn, so that's why I said it can go into the ease of play aspect of it.
Yeah.
But because of how much the theme really comes out of this game, how when you're playing the Michael Myers character or playing against the Michael Myers character, you feel that tension. I remember you guys were like, he's outside that door. He's right out there. That's where we need to go because we found what we needed, but he's right there. So, yeah, it is a fantastic game. I really enjoy it. Halloween for Game Immersion.
All right, so my first one for Game Immersion, one of the big things that I remember about Fury of Dracula is that you knew that when you found Dracula, you were going to have to fight him.
Yeah.
And that was one of the biggest things. Like, so you were trying to, you were trying to track him because when you actually go into a spot that they've been previously, you reveal that that's where they've been, you know?
Yeah.
And so you figure out these clues. So you're slowly deducing where they're going to, where they're going to be. But you don't, you need to find them. But at the same time, you don't really want to find them, right?
Yeah.
Because it's going to be really unpleasant because you know you're going to have to fight them. And so I picked a game that made you feel like you knew that there was somebody hunting for you. It's an all versus many as well, but at no point did you actually want to find the vampire that's looking for you. This is Nyctophobia.
I figured this was going to be on your list.
Yeah, it is a one versus many as well, and it's less of a I'm trying to find where you are and more of a I'm trying to not find where the vampire is, because the way it works is pretty simple. The vampire is the only player who can see anything. Everybody else plays in the dark, right? And they're trying to find their way out. They're trying to find their way to the vehicle, essentially through a maze or whatever. Not quite. I mean, there's more to it than that. But
yeah.
You're trying to hear things to different directions. But if you ever move in a direction towards the vampire, then they pretty much kill you, right? And that's really unpleasant. But there's that sense of tension because you're feeling your piece. You have your finger on it. You're not looking. You're like, all right, I'm going to go this way. And then because they can never kill you directly, they can only go next to your character, and only if you move into their space do they get to attack you.
Okay.
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it sounds pretty neat.
Yeah. Have you played it before?
No, I haven't played it.
I don't think you would like it personally, but I mean maybe you might appreciate it.
I'd appreciate it.
Yeah.
It doesn't. I don't like those kind of games when it comes to like having to use blowing and stuff like that. This one, just the touch aspect, it doesn't bother me.
Right. Okay. Yeah. That's fair. And it's less about the sense of like I knew people who were like really uncomfortable with like the blindfold stuff. It's like that doesn't bother me at all.
That doesn't bother me.
But it's really thematic. The only bad part about the game is that the bad guy, the person playing that, it's really easy to win.
Oh, yeah.
So the instructions specifically say it's like, look, we get it's really easy to win, because it's not hard to put them in a corner and then just be right next to them and let them fall into your trap. That's normal. Like, so take it easy on them so that way they can enjoy it more, because it's less about the game and more about the experience.
I also really like the story behind this game too.
Oh yeah, and it's an amazing story. Like, I can respect that a lot. It's for the listeners who don't know about this game, the storyline was, or the story, the designer, yeah, she made this game so that her visually impaired, I think uncle was able to play a game with them. And there's very few games that rely on senses like that, or
doesn't rely just on sight.
Yeah, exactly. And there's so many that rely on sight so heavily, so he couldn't enjoy the time that she was enjoying games. So she designed a game that you could play entirely blindfolded, and he could still get the same experience that they did, which is a lovely story.
Great story, yeah.
Great story. And the components are really cool. It looks creepy. The blackout glasses did a really good job. And I just don't think Pandasaurus prints it anymore, which is a shame.
I haven't
but
seen it, yeah.
It's super cool. I've always enjoyed my version of it. Nyctophobia is my game immersion recommendation.
Still need to try it.
Yeah. Maybe sometime this season. I don't know.
Yeah, art and production.
All right, here we go. So, art and production. The art on Fury of Dracula is pretty decent, you know. It's kind of
not the first edition, though.
The first edition was ugly. The map is pretty bad.
Yeah, it is.
There's color-coded regions, and it's really hard to see for us colorblind folks.
That's the big issue with Fantasy Flight, especially older Fantasy Flight, too. They were not colorblind friendly.
Well, see, it really wasn't. And the thing is, like, even this newer edition, it's still not pleasant. But the art itself
that one's the Fantasy Flight edition. The newest one is WizKids, and they basically just reprinted that one.
Oh, yeah. Well, so this one, the art, it's okay, but it gives a really old-looking feel to it. It's kind of campy looking, and the way that you track your movement is that you have a set of cards that you're laying down, and you have a dry erase board that you have a mini version. This is for the Dracula player.
Yeah.
And everybody else is playing directly on the board. The art is pretty nice for what it is, you know, considering there's hidden movement. It's, you know, you can only illustrate so much.
I get what they were going with the art on this one.
Yeah, I do too. And I found one that's like, it really brings out the campiness of a horror movie. Mm-hmm. And so the art on this one is Last Friday.
I was wondering if this is going to be on your list. Yeah. I mean, this one intrigues me. Another one I haven't played before. So
yeah. Last Friday it plays over 4 rounds.
This was based off of Friday the 13th,
yes.
Right? Yeah.
Yep. I thought. Absolutely. And so you're basically in the campgrounds. You know, you're trying to find your way out. You can play the mini version of the game. There's technically 4 ways to play it. Mm-hmm. Where either everyone's trying to find the hidden movement from the Jason character, Jason, right? Yeah, Friday the 13th.
Jason Voorhees, yeah.
Voorhees, yeah.
Unless you're watching the first movie, then it's the mom.
Yeah. Oh. Okay. Spoiler. Is it?
It's not really a spoiler anymore. If you haven't watched it, it's been out since the 70s. That's on you.
Mr. High and Mighty. No, but that's the first one. But then the second one, it's still hidden movement, but the killer is trying to find or capture all the players. But then the last 2 rounds is basically the same thing, except everyone's trying to fight and kill the main villain, and then it's vice versa. They're trying to kill him instead of capturing. So if you play the full thing, the first 2 rounds, if you're able to find him or if he's able to capture all of you in the rounds 1 or 2, then you get a buff for the 3rd and 4th rounds, and that's when once everybody's dead, then it's game over. So yeah, it's pretty cool. Definitely campy looking. The best part about the components though in Last Friday is you have a hidden screen for the player who's moving, and there's a little cutout about yay big, and that's where they look through to look at the board. So that way it's really not obvious where they're like peeking. So they're looking at on the inside of this, like basically like this, but they're looking through an eye hole here. So they're looking at the board, and you can't really tell what parts they're looking at.
Okay.
And I appreciate that fact. Like that was a really good implementation of that. Whereas like otherwise, like if you're playing on this big old giant board on Fury of Dracula, you're going. Yeah, I'll put that card down.
No, the thing about it, at least with Fury of Dracula, you can look at your board and kind of figure where you're at. And you're basically just looking at the board, per se, on there, because you're just trying to see where they are.
Right.
It's like, what works best for me to go.
Right.
So I remember when we played it, Dom would be doing this. And I'm like, You sneaky.
You sneaky man.
What are you up to?
Right, exactly. So that's art, the production, components, graphic design. Last Friday. If you want that feel, you'll get it.
So the next one on my list here for art and production, I was hemming and hawing on this one, because this was specifically the hardest one, because Fantasy Flight really does things really well. WizKids does it pretty good too, or Game Workshop. I don't remember which one got it. I think it's Game Workshop, but I could be wrong. For the 4th edition of Fury of Dracula, those are the two you can find in the wild.
Yeah.
But the one I wanted to go with here, because it's a possible trader, it has minis, it's fantastic. It's not a full one versus mini, because I didn't want to just do straight up one versus mini games. The one I went with is Nemesis, or Nemesis Lockdown. Awakened Realms are really known for their art and production. Their quality is through the roof. We personally like the Castles of Burgundy special edition that they've made. Nemesis is another one of that production value that is really, really good.
Yeah.
I wanted to go with a horror-themed game. And the other one I was going with, and it might show up on your list later maybe, is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre Slaughterhouse, I think is what it's called, the Funko version, because that's the only one I played. And it was probably going to be the only one that's slotted in here, but it's just like the production value is great. It's well done. I don't think it equals like the miniatures and stuff like that Fury of Dracula gives you.
Yeah.
Whereas Nemesis does. And I like the fact that you can still have a possible trader to determine if they want to win the game. You still have to work cooperatively to a certain point in this game. It really does feel like Aliens, more so than the Alien board game that's right up there. The production value, again, through the roof. And the big thing about it, too, is this is for another part of our criteria, but the length of time is pretty equivalent to Fury of Dracula and Nemesis. They're pretty on par for the length of time. The board is much easier to read in Nemesis. The minis blow Fantasy Flight out of the water with their miniatures. Those alien miniatures, man, they are fantastic. I forget what they're called in Nemesis, but they look better than some of the alien miniatures I've seen out there.
Right.
But all in all, so Nemesis is my art production pick.
Cool. Let's now go on to meaningful choice. And meaningful choice is the impact on other players, the depth of strategy, tactics, or skills, and do arbitrary choices or AP impact the gameplay. Now, you said it earlier, like one of the big things that I don't really like is that the 4 players are held amongst the the 4.
You have to play
people,
all
right?
the hunters.
Right. You have to play all the hunters. But one of the good things I do like about it is that since all of the hunters have these special abilities, they're able to use them to their effect. You're able to get certain ways to help you with battles. You're able to go into locations to help deduce where they're going. There's a lot of meaningful deduction in that, which is one thing I did like about it. Last Friday actually did a good thing about that, where like every, I think, 3 to 5 turns, you had to reveal where they were that number of turns ago. So there's blood splatters on the numbers. And so once you hit a blood splatter, then you have to say where you were 5 turns ago. So you'd be like, oh, wow, you're 5 spaces away from that. And that's one of the things that are like that. And I like the deduction part of it most. That's my favorite part about that game. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted to pick a game that had that good deduction where you could actually suss out exactly what you needed to. But that doesn't mean, even if you determine who they are, where they are, what they're doing, that doesn't mean you're going to win. You just have to do your best to try and to get the upper hand when that player is found. And so I picked a 2-player game called Mr. Jack. And in this is a Bruno Cathala game. And this is a 2-player only. Mm-hmm. And you are deducing which character is Mr. Jack. Now, Mr. Jack's goal is just to escape from the city within 8 turns. If they're able to do it, or if they take long enough, then they're not found and took too much time, and then they win.
Yeah.
Whereas the player playing the inspector, detective, or whatever, they're trying to figure out who the character is and then put an innocent person on top of them to capture them. So, super simple how it works. On your turn, you get 4 of the characters that are dealt out at random. If I pick first and I pick 1, then you would pick 2 of the characters, activate their abilities, then I'd pick 1 more, the 4th one. Then it'd be vice versa on your turn. You'd take 1, I'd take 2, you take 1. And using that back and forth, like, 1-2-1 actions. Super cool because every one of the characters has its own ability. And at the end of that round, all they give up as the information is, can Mr. Jack be seen? And that's either if you're adjacent to a lamppost that's on, or if you're adjacent to another character. If you are either of those, you are therefore seen. And then all the characters who are either not seen if you are seen, or seen if you are not seen, are flipped to their gray side to show, okay, well, they've been exonerated effectively.
Okay.
And so you have to use those abilities really wisely to suss out exactly who they are. And then, even if you figure out who they are, they can still have a chance to win because they can just run and gun. That's the cool part. So it's a really fun and interactive game. I think it has a lot of cool deduction, a lot of opportunities for using those powers to great effect. So Mr. Jack, if you want a quick 2-player kind of almost hidden movement-esque game, it's my recommendation.
All right, so for my meaningful choice recommendation here, what I like about Fury of Dracula is, again, like you were saying, the deduction where you're trying to find out where the Dracula character is. You're trying to deduce by going to different parts of the board. There is a little bit of randomness in there based on the time of day, too, so because you're drawing cards from the bottom if it's nighttime rather than the top, so you kind of have a little deduction and mitigation there. So there is a little bit of lucky on there, and so the game I pick has a little bit of lucky, but because of the fact that you're trying to deduce if someone isn't who they say they are, for the good of the colony, and this is a Dead of Winter. I like this one. There's a possible hidden traitor, so it's not a full straight co-op game, which you can play it as a full straight co-op, but there's a possibility of the hidden traitor. You mentioned it earlier, the asymmetrical character powers. The characters that you have all have different powers that will do. The crossworld cards come up, and it depends on the certain characters that you can be playing as. Or just something's going to happen no matter what. The person with the highest value of this or the highest value of that will have it. Or someone who's got a weapon or a firearm or something like that. Mm-hmm. Just different stuff that's coming up. And it falls in line with the events that happen in Fury of Dracula as well. The possible hidden traitor. I love the fact that you're like, it's trying to suss characters out, and the possible banishment of a character too. So everybody's still feeling that tension and the story choices they have to make. Like, for me to win, I need to do this certain thing, and I need to hold this much food for myself. But for us to win, we need to make sure the colony's fed or morale drops. And if we lose morale all the way to 0, we lose and stuff like that. So those interesting choices are like, okay, I got to feed over here, or someone is putting stuff in the pile that we don't need and ends up screwing us over, and then everybody's like, there's something afoot over here. Yep. And so I love that tension. It gives you the same feel, and the choices you have to make. Yeah, you have to deal with dice rolls. You have the frostbite token, the crossroad cards. There's so many of them that stuff comes out, but it has those meaningful choices that you're still like, I got to go over here, but do I want to do more over here because it's going to draw noise, which means more zombies are coming up, or do I want to start taking care of some of these zombies to help make sure the colony is taken care of? I just love everything about Dead of Winter.
Cool. Awesome. All right. Our next one up is Ease of Play, which Ease of Play breaks down into simplicity and familiarity with the mechanisms, likelihood to get to the table, whether it's a mechanism or theme, and is it easy to understand, learn, or teach. Now, there is a bit of a learning curve with Fury of Dracula, but the hidden movement, everyone's just trying to seek out the one person. The fact that when you determine the location, you flip over the card saying, hey, look, I was there, but that was like 6 turns ago, so that's on you. You know, the fact that each of the backs of the cards are different, so if you travel by water, it's a different color back than if you did by land. That's pretty cool.
And it allows you to deduce, he's in a port somewhere.
Right, exactly. It's like, oh, he's currently in water right now, so he's got to be somewhere.
The one thing we haven't mentioned, too, about the cards, too, is that no location, it's one card per location.
Right, so once you leave a location, you can never go back there.
Yeah.
And so I picked a game that was also a hidden movement, just because I thought that made the most sense. But the way that they move, the mode of transport, is how you're going to determine where they move to. This is Scotland Yard. I referenced it earlier at the beginning of the game. Have you played Scotland Yard?
It's been ages.
Okay, cool.
I remember, I like the game. It's a fun game. That board is hard to deal with.
It is.
There's so many numbers.
And there's so many numbers, and there's a lot of different colors because of the different routes, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, like, the most common route that everyone's taking, which is probably, like, bus routes or whatever, the most commonly connected is also, like, the slowest, right?
Yeah.
Or a taxi or whatever it is. And so you have all these different routes, and so you know what kind of routes they're taking, and there's only so many ways that they could avoid it. All you have to do is find Mr. X and then locate him, and then the game's over. You win. But they can be super elusive by how many different ways they can do it. If they went from a bus to a subway to another bus, then that's a very different thing. Like, that gives a lot of different options. Even if you found out where they were a few turns ago, then you can kind of deduce, like, okay, well, if they did it this way, then, well, they could go to any of these. But there's only 2 bus routes from here, so it's probably not that. But they know that, and therefore they probably took it, and now it's Princess Bride all over again, right? We just don't know.
Yeah.
So I like that mechanism a lot, and I thought that was a really easy way to learn it. And it took what Fury of Dracula did and just distills it.
Yeah.
Again, they're only a few years apart originally, so that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I don't blame you. And you can still find Scotland Yard to this day. I think Renegade just reprinted it recently.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, so it's not that hard to find.
It's a Spiel winner, so...
Yeah. All right, so my ease of play one is strictly a co-op. Like I said, I wanted to stay away from like hidden movement games all the time. I wanted to still stick with the horror or the tension theme. In this one, you're trying to find out who murdered a ghost. And he's giving clues to determine who...
I thought about putting this one on my list.
And I figured this was the best spot to put it, was an ease of play, and this is Mysterium.
Yep.
You have one clue giver, who is basically the one versus many in a sense, but he's working with you guys, but he can't talk. All he's doing is giving you dreams where you have to decipher the murder weapon, the location they were murdered, in the person that did it. So first it's person, then location, then murder weapon, and he's trying to give you dreams to deduce that. And everybody, one person's the clue giver, and everybody is they're trying to find the set that corresponds with them, and then overall you find out who the murderer is in the final round, depending on how far you're on that track. My issue is that little bit of that last step. They fix it in Mysterium Park, which I think is fantastic. But I still do like Mysterium a lot. It is a fun party game aspect because it holds up to 7 people.
Yep.
The artwork is fantastic. So this is another one that could have gone into art and production. And I was thinking about doing it, and I just thought of Nemesis.
I thought about art and production too.
And the thing about this one too is it's the simplest game really out there, because all you're doing is one person is giving cards and you're trying to deduce what he's trying to point to or they're trying to point to in this section. Once you're done with this section, he's giving you new clues to this section while other people might still be working in that first section.
Yeah.
And we all get to work together. So it's like, oh, this is the dream and you're sharing your dreams with the person, and they're like, I think he's pointing to this because you're up here. This has a lot of this. There's a bathtub that might be the bathroom. So that kind of stuff. You're deducing those dreams and working together, and you're trying to help the person who's behind you. Say they're still in the first section where they're trying to find the person. It's like, oh, there's some vehicles on that one, or rats or something like that. Maybe it's the kitchen, so maybe the chef did it because they're in the kitchen and stuff like that. So I love every aspect of it. It's very simple. I've shown this to many a people. My wife has actually requested to play it this weekend when we go game night. Ooh. Because that's how much we enjoy this game. And variability too. What I like about it too is that if you want to play in easy mode, you have enough crows to help you wipe your hand if you don't like the cards that are in your hand. In medium mode, you get 3 crows for the entire game. Once you're done with those crows, you can't wipe your hand anymore. And then I think in hard mode, you get 1 crow for the entire time, if I remember correctly, and it makes it much more difficult because you're stuck with what cards are in your hand if you're the clue giver. Yeah. So I love that. It's a very simple game. It's fun to play with families. It's my favorite of the 3 that are sort of in this line. Dixit and Obscurio is the other one. Mysterium.
Cool. Awesome. Now we're going on to our final one, which is replay value.
And when we talk about replay value, it's the length of time and the scaling well, which we kind of mentioned earlier in some other games. The minimum number of plays for the full experience, and expandability if there's already existing expansions, up to 1 possible future expansions, or those that have been confirmed by the designer or publisher. The game I went on here was the easiest one that I put on this list because it knocks all those out of the park, including the expansion, because I don't think Fury of Dracula has an expansion that I can think of. And I think part of it's because some of the games, there was some stuff that got added, say in the 3rd edition, that were part of an expansion, which is weird. Because Fantasy Flight likes to expand their stuff and make them
really
bloat.
do. Yes, they do.
So I'm surprised that didn't get it. But for the game I picked on here, also has 3 editions. The newest one is out. You can find it in Target and stuff like that. And my pick is Betrayal at the House on the Hill.
Ah, yes. Okay.
Betrayal at House on the Hill is actually what it's called. I love the fact that they're asymmetric powers, including if I'm playing one character, I can play 2 different versions of that same character. So asymmetric abilities there. I love the fact that the exploration in this game, so you feel like you're moving around the map in Fury of Dracula trying to find out where Dracula is. This one, you're going to modular rooms and trying to figure out what's going on. Oh no, I went into this room and I fell down, now I'm in the basement and I got to find the stairs back up. I love every aspect of that. I love the fact that there could be a traitor. You don't know. It could be fully co-op. The fact that there's so many stories out of the base game already tells you you don't need an expansion for this game, because I think out of the base game there's 50 different stories that you can play. And it all depends on the certain items that you find in the certain room, certain characters. So I like that aspect of it too. It does have one expansion for the 2nd edition. I don't know if they're going to re-release Widow's Walk for the 3rd edition. If you don't like the horror theme aspect of that, then there is a Dungeons and Dragons version of it as well, which is Betrayer at Baldur's Gate. Yep. So you have a plethora of choices, and just the expandability alone on this game knocks it out of the park. And this was by far the easiest one to put on the list for me.
Yeah, I didn't even think about it, but I don't know. Since of all the different scenarios, like I don't get that with Fury of Dracula, so I wouldn't have done that. But my recommendation, my last one, isn't that much farther away. You already talked about it. It's a crossover. It was either between that or here, Dead of Winter. And I picked Dead of Winter. Just because it is kind of a longer game. You're expecting a couple hours, right? It plays a large player count, which is good. There's that level of deduction, whether you're trying to figure out where the traitor is or if there's a traitor. You know, it's that same reasoning of like you're both trying to have kind of a similar end game goal, but one of you might be working against you. You know, that in Fury of Dracula you get that sense, even though you know directly who is working against you. That's everything you said about it. That's why I went with it.
Yeah, with that being said, those were our recommendations of Fury of Dracula. What are your guys' recommendation, if you have any? Yeah,
whatever service you're watching us on now, whether it's live or recording later on, comment down below and let us know. So if you ever want to contact us directly, you certainly can. Email us at everydayboardgames2020@gmail.com, whether that's to enter in future contest ideas.
Hint, hint, next week.
Hint, hint. Or whether that's to just say hello or give us ideas for future episodes. Also, we have an Instagram. That's instagram.com/everydayboardgames. And follow us there. We try to post some silly stuff.
As well as all video re-uploads and reviews are found on YouTube under youtube.com/@everydayboardgames. And if you like what we do, there are 3 things you can do to help us grow on the platform. Subscribe if you're not, like the video, and comment down below and tell us your thoughts on the subject.
And we also love it when people join us on a live recording of our episode. We stream these live at twitch.tv/everydayboardgames. Despite our troubleshooting today, we still enjoy it. Thank you, Mario Fanatics, for joining us, and anybody else who joins in on the chats. We'd love to hear your thoughts during our episodes.
And all audio versions can be found on most podcast platforms under Everyday Board Games Podcast. This includes Spotify, Amazon Music, Podbean, and Apple.
So we want to thank you so much for tuning in. As always, I've been your host, Daniel.
And I've been your host, Daniel.
And we want to thank you for listening to Everyday Board Games.
And remember, every day is a good day for board gaming.
And just in time.